Okay, we're off and running.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Chris Edge. I'm the chairman of the Rains Park Association. For those of you who don't know about it, I think most of you probably do, it's an association made up of the local residents association and businesses. And we try to help develop things in the community, work with councillors and officers and other organisations where necessary. We also help organise this agenda for the Rains Park Forum. And I'm very pleased that David Dean has agreed to, Councillor David Dean, I should say, has agreed to chair tonight. He's a hardworking man who always goes on about the environment. So he's probably saying we're wasting water with the floods. So hopefully he will take that forward with Thames Water and the council when their time comes on the later items. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to David, who will, I think, introduce the councillors and then move on to the first item.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Chris, and thank you for providing the words about me as I asked you to. But no, that's very good of you. Yes, so councillors on the call. Can we start with the council leader, Mark Allison? Do you want to say anything at the very beginning to say hi?
No, happy just to say hello, everyone.
Okay, right, that's good. We've got Councillor Stephen Crowe. Want to wave your hand?
Yeah, good evening all.
Yeah, Councillor Adam Bush.
Good evening all.
Yeah, we have Councillor Anthony Fairclough.
Evening, everyone.
Councillor Bailey, I think there, is that right?
Yes, I'm just hiding because I already took my makeup off and you don't deserve to be punished this way. Hello, everyone.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the advice. And I think no, that's former councillor Michael Ball. Do you want to say hi, Michael? I've almost introduced you there. Yes, you are. Right, okay. Have I missed out any councillors? If so, please shout.
Hi, David. I'm here as well. Councillor Omar Bush.
So sorry, Omar. I didn't mean to miss you.
Okay.
So we've got councillors from Lavender Ward, Mr. Allison. We've got Dundonald Ward. We have West Barnes. We have Rains Park. Yeah, that's correct, isn't that? So I've got everybody else in there. Okay. Chris Witherington. I think the first guests are the police, aren't they, on our list?
That's right, yeah.
Yep. And we've got Marcia and I think Doug as well. Which one of you are going to speak?
Hello, it's Marcia Heritage. Hello.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi, I'm a sergeant for the 4 wards around the town centre. But yeah, thanks to Chris Edge for inviting us along to have a chat. Doug Walter is also somewhere in the ether, I think.
Okay. Do you know how long you've got, Marcia, to speak? Do you know how long you've got to speak?
I don't. I can make it very rapid. Fear not.
No, don't have to be rapid. I'm just keen at 10 minutes. Is that fair for you?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Well, over to you, Marcia.
Yeah, all it was. So Chris has invited us along very kindly to speak today about some of the ward boundary changes. I have to say, from a police perspective, we're still sort of getting our heads around some of it. We've got a new inspector who's started for the whole of Merton, who takes over from Inspector Bob Whitehead, who some of you may have known. She's only been in post for a couple of weeks and she's got a period of annual leave, so I'm sort of covering for her in a way. I can see that with regards to the ward boundary changes, I've been trying to get a decent map so I can see all the road names on it, but I've got the sort of brief outline. And I can see that Dundonald Ward obviously amalgamates into Wimbledon Town Centre and Dundonald Ward. So from a police perspective, Doug Walter, who is the ward officer for Dundonald, will remain on that ward and will acquire some of Trinity Ward. So his ward will get a bit bigger. And obviously I think it's the Apostles will then go into Rains Park Ward. And that's the main big change, as well as obviously Wandle is being created. So the ward officer for Trinity Ward, PC Mackenzie, will then move into Wandle Ward. And I think Abbey is not changing too much and Hillside aren't changing that that much. So I think they're the biggest changes. I think part of Womenham Park goes into Wandle as well. From the perspective of sort of ward panels and chairs, we're going to get together with obviously the inspector, Marm Green, when she returns. And I think she's going to send out some sort of more detailed communication about what the plan is. Obviously, it's going to involve some sort of a rejig, because obviously some of our chairs may be over a certain boundary. So we're going to sort of lose some and gain some in other places. So there's going to be a bit of a rejig. But yeah, just wanted everyone to be sort of rest assured that we're going to be on it eventually when it all comes out. And obviously there's going to be issues with some of our systems as well. Obviously at the moment, when you put your postcode into the Met Police website, it comes up with your ward. But obviously that will need to change, and some of our own systems will need to change as well. So yeah, so it's a work. We're in the early stages, and yeah, it will just require a few emails going out, I think, to work out where everyone lives and what ward they're going to be on, and sort of doing a bit of digging about. But yeah, there'll still be a town centre team. So I know Doug has now gained quite a large ward, but we'll still have a town centre team that will be helping Doug out in the town centre. Yeah. So that sort of won't change either. But yeah, that's the sort of update as I've got it. Is there
So
any...
Marcia, in terms of numbers, we're assuming that your numbers will stay the same, because ward boundaries don't mean anything to you. It's the borough that matters in terms of numbers, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll still have exactly the same. I think it's still 20 wards, isn't it?
No,
I think
19,
so. We'll still have
oddly.
it.
Well, no, there
Oh,
are.
okay.
No, you're right. No, I think you're right. No, you're right.
I think there's still
Yeah.
20, because whilst you lose Dundonald, you gain Wandle. I think that's the only, from what I can see.
Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, we'll still have the same number of safe neighbourhood officers, so that won't change. They'll just sort of be moving slightly over a bit. So yeah, so just a slight change. But yeah, still the same number of officers and PCSOs and sergeants. So that hasn't changed for us now.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Are there any particular questions for Marcia? I don't think we.
Or
yeah.
Doug. Doug's there somewhere.
Oh, somewhere.
I'm
I
here.
didn't see Doug.
Can you hear me okay?
Doug, so you can answer the questions then, as you're here, as Marcia's done the work up front. Councillor Crowe, you have a question.
Well, it's tangential to the reorganisation. I seem to recall in the past there was a discussion about changing the police operations to take into account the physical layout. So, for example, New Rains Park is going to be both sides of the railway line. But in the past, we had talked about organising the police so they didn't have to, as it were, cross over physical barriers which affected policing. Is that something which has just gone by the wayside, or is that still pending?
I think that's gone by the wayside. Generally, we just literally go by. It's so much easier for us to align ourselves with sort of council boundaries that, yeah, I mean, it's not too much of a problem generally for us. Ward officers. Go on,
Yeah,
Doug.
I was just going to say, we do link in with the other ward officers as well. So we all work together and we all have a good working knowledge of the different problems in the different wards.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Marcia or for Doug? I don't see any other questions. Okay. Marcia, Doug, I appreciate your time this evening. And as you say, the things won't change in the short term anyway. And if people are unsure if they're speaking to the wrong police teams, of course, we know that you will put them in the right direction. So we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much. And we'll let you go.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Chris,
Actually,
thank you.
I have a question. I had a question.
Oh, Nick, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I think
For the police, actually, if they're still there.
I'm not sure they are now,
I'm-
Chris.
I'm
Nick.
still here. If you
Oh,
want to
Doug.
ask a question. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
by the way.
There were been a couple of reports later in the next door neighbour emails about burglars trying to get into people's properties, certainly in the Apostles area and else, and I think in further other areas of the borough, trying to get in to people's homes through the front door in the middle of the night. And I wonder how prevalent that sort of kind of thing is. I mean, they show the people who had videos and shown people burglars trying to do that. And I thought, bloody hell, that's the first time I've come across people actually burglars trying to get in when they know people must be in their homes in the middle of the night. That's pretty worrying.
Yeah, I would say most burglaries do actually occur in the daytime when people are at work.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, you do have the odd instance where somebody will try their luck. I think we did have a burglary on Oxford Avenue, I think recently. That was a house under renovation. Some tools were taken from there. But yeah, I haven't seen any video of people trying front doors and things like that. I haven't seen that. So if you've got that to hand, that would be, send it over to me.
I could send you the link to the email, I suppose.
Yeah, that'd be useful, just so I can have a look at that. But yeah, we haven't been doing too bad for burglaries really at the moment. We're actually okay. We've had a couple, but we've had a few, as I say, tools go missing and things and bits and pieces. We had a commercial burglary where someone stole some money from behind the till the other day, which I'm looking into as well. But on a whole, it's actually not been too bad recently.
And Doug, are you've got priorities based on your own work and based on discussions with police groups and the council. Burglary, we're assuming, is in your sort of top 3 challenges, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're always working on our priorities. Burglary is one of them. So we do spend a lot of our time patrolling the burglary hotspots and that sort of thing, making sure that if there is a burglary, we'll go and speak to the victims, and also make the wider neighbourhood aware of what's happened as well. We do some door-to-door inquiries and things of that nature. So yeah, we do what we can. We're always patrolling the hotspots. So that's why it's important for people to report these crimes to us. Even if it's an attempted burglary, you might find some tool marks on a window or something. We need to know about it, because I know there have been instances before where people have found a tool mark, told the neighbours, but then not actually told us that it's happened, and we found out much later. So we always need to hear about these things, because as I say, we direct our patrols towards the areas where the crimes are happening. So we always need to know about that.
So Doug, can you do us a favour? And I know you've done this before. Can you send to Chris Witherington a link on how people report? I know it's straightforward, but just not everybody knows these days.
Yeah, I can do that. As I say, we're always there's always lots of ways to report crime now. You can do it on the internet, or you can call 101, which is a non-urgent police number. But yeah, we're sort of quite accessible now.
Hi there. I've also got a question, Douglas. Sorry, Doug. It's in regards to catalytic converters being stolen from older vehicles in Rains Park, and what the advice is around that. Because I know there's been a couple of situations within my ward where residents have had their catalytic converters stolen from their cars.
Yeah, so with catalytic converters, it's good. There are a few different things you can do. You can look. If you go to your sort of local garage and talk to them, they can install some sort of security measures. I think there's like some sort of cradle they can put over the catalytic converter, which screws into the bodywork, and that makes it a lot harder for people to actually take the catalytic converter off, because they have to remove that as well. And what they want to do is obviously turn up, jack the car up, and remove it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So, if you do fit those security measures, there's a good chance they'll jack it up and be like, "Oh, this is going to take ages," and move on. So that's actually really useful, because I hadn't heard of that before, and I know there's quite a few people that are concerned about that. So I'll inform the people that I know, but I don't know whether it's worth maybe as an association putting something out there just to kind of pre-warn people, because there are older cars on the street that potentially will get stolen. And I know a lot of residents are concerned because the people that are normally stealing it have weapons and everything else. And I know the police kind of say not to approach them when they are stealing it. I think when it happened in Rains Park, it was actually during the day, which was obviously scary for the residents that kind of were seeing this kind of happen at that time. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that sort of crime does take place in broad daylight, they're very brazen about it, and you're absolutely right. They've got the tools to remove the catalytic converter, so they already come armed. So we would advise people not to approach them, because obviously there's a big risk that you might end up getting injured. So 999 straight away if you ever see any, a couple of people under a car. If something doesn't seem right, give us a call, 999. We'll come down and check it out.
Omar and Nick and Sue, does that answer all your questions?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Sue as well. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Doug? No, I can't see anybody. Doug? Yeah, go on, Nick.
Actually, this was just one thing. Doug said send him the link. I don't have the email, so I send it. So I send it to Chris, who can send it on, maybe.
Yes, do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, do that. Thank you very much, Doug. We appreciate your time, and we'll let you go. And our next speakers, Chris, I believe, are going to be Chris Larkman and Tony, who are going to talk various things, mainly about Rains Park Station. So over to Chris and Tony.
Hi, everyone. Tony, do you want to start off? Okay, the lack of any response. Shall I start?
Yes.
You're muted, Tony.
Yeah, no, I could just perhaps do an intro, really. If Chris Witherington could put up a slide, I would speak to the first 3 slides, Chris, if you could share your screen. We just wanted to, have a look in a way of where we've come from, and before Chris takes up from the recent events as well. So this is to remind people of the space that we were trying to improve. It doesn't seem so long ago, but clearly the hoardings were something that had to be removed. One of the something like 15 hoardings in Rains Park. And the waste bins, which we weren't too sure who was using them. We were pretty sure people were pulling up and dumping rubbish in them and driving on. So it wasn't for local residents' benefit. So,
well, actually, local residents actually did use those bins. Quite a lot of them, to be honest. I think, and a lot of people were sorry they were taken away.
Nick, well, sorry, can we leave that for now? And
yeah,
we'll come. I just want to put that on record.
Okay, there was another set round the other side of the station. They didn't all go. I think the problem was
they all went. Anyway, they were all taken away.
Yeah, the ones on the other side stayed for a bit. Anyway, so anyway, this was the space that we were trying to improve. Can we go to the next slide, Chris? And this was us in action, where see Chris Lumpman there, Councillor Bull, and also the universal flooring from Rains Park. So we were using spare material from Wimbledon to try to actually make the space a little more welcoming and obviously not dominated by macadam. So that was a very efficient way of actually doing it. We actually wanted to fix it down to see whether it would stay there, because one never knows with vandalism, etc. You take one step in optimism, but to see whether in fact it would actually stay there, and it did. So can we go to the next one, please? And there was like the final effect, where we respected the cycle lanes. We obviously answered the bins going was a help, and obviously the hoardings going was an even more of a help overall. So that was where we basically got to around about 2019 by using all the collective efforts of councillors, RPA members, and a local company as well. So Chris, would you like to take it on from here to show what the next steps were?
Yeah, fine. We've been working for many years with Merton Council, and this area at the south of the Skew Arch has been an area that we felt could always be better used for public use. We'd hoped to put in a farmer's market there, but that didn't in the end take off. So we're really pleased now to be working with Merton Council, and we're pleased with what they've done in setting up a parklet in this space. and that is very attractive. And I don't know, we got a picture of it at the moment. Oh, wow. There you go. And just as an aside, the AstroTurf, there's been some criticism of that. And Tony and I put that down only to demonstrate what is possible in this area. And it's been there for 3 years to our total amazement. And it's survived very well. So it's not something that was ever meant to be. And people always criticize the council, and they criticize the council for the AstroTurf, but it was actually Tony and I put it down, so you'll have to criticize us this time. So it's just to show off what can be done. And so that parklet area is brilliant. And one local volunteer, Matt Willis, has done an awful lot of work already in that area. And he's, with some friends, they've painted the whole tunnel there in preparation for a mural which will go on the left part of that picture. Yeah, there you go. They've painted it in their own time. And they've even covered up some graffiti that happened there. So that's really brilliant. And so Merton Council have erected the parklet in the front, and they're going to water it and maintain it for a year and then assess what can be possible. Now, the mural is going to be erected on the 11th of October and will take about a fortnight to erect.
Yeah.
And what we're hoping as the Rains Park Association is working with the council that we will be able to use part of the carriageway, because it's dual carriageway there and a lot wider than it needs to be, to create more public space. And who knows, one day to have a farmer's market and other events in that part of Rains Park, and also uniting the north and the south of Rains Park itself. I'm actually a bit excited that we will be part of one ward, if you like, council ward, Rains Park ward, because on the south side, we've always felt a bit as if we're the poor relations. Yes, so that's really great news. A couple of other small things I want to talk about. The area to the south of the railway station, you know, the piece of land that is being transferred, or this has been going on for 10, 12 years, but the land as you leave the station at the southern entrance and go to the bus stop is very narrow. And Network Rail are going to transfer some of that land to the London Borough of Merton. And I'm ever so grateful to Merton Council, particularly to Paul McGarry, who's stuck in there. And it looks, believe it or not, that this is going to come about in the near future. I'm grateful for Stephen Crow, Councillor Stephen Crow, who confirmed that only today, that is at last going to happen fairly soon. Network Rail, to be fair to the London Borough of Merton, have been very difficult to deal with. And talking of London Borough, talking about Network Rail, we're still almost there over managing that northern embankment. Finally, the Kiss and Ride. We all know that area at the entrance to the industrial estate is meant to be a kiss and ride, and it's used by loads of people parking for as long as they like, and there are no restrictions. Workspace, who own the industrial estate, it's their responsibility in the planning application to manage and maintain parking in that area. And I'm in touch with them, and they are promising to come up with plans, and we're going to hold them to that. And if they don't, we'll be turning to the London Borough of Merton, asking them to insist that as part of the planning application, they do that. They're taking too long about it, and it should happen. And we're looking forward to that happening fairly soon. So that's all I've got to say. It looks as if things are moving in the right direction in Rains Park gradually, but it all takes an awful lot of time. Thank you.
Chris and Tony, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed also for your work over the last 11 years. And I thought it was amazing, those images you showed. I know that Nick may have a slightly different opinion on them, but what a dramatic difference it's made over that time. So thank you very much for every meeting you've had month after month with the protagonists to get as far as you have. One question that we've had from Jane is what's going to happen beyond that first year with regard to the parklet? I'm assuming on the basis that the money is sunk, that we can ask the council to keep it there as long as it's in good condition.
I'm not sure who's going to answer that.
Well, I mean, I've got, it's a supposition, I suppose, because there's another parklet on the other side in front of Lime and Time, and obviously it takes up 2 parking spaces. So I suppose the debate is, do we lose the 2 parking spaces in perpetuity, and is that the benefit of Lime and Time, or does it all get dismantled and taken away? I think it's meant to be a temporary intervention to make use of the outside space.
Okay, so is there anybody on this call? Is there anybody on this call that thinks it should be taken away? There's a general view? I mean, my feeling is it should stay, but what's the general view? Anybody want to speak up or answer in the chat? Any views on it?
Stephen's quite a good accountant.
Yeah. David, can I just say that I believe that Fyme and Line actually pay a fee to the council for that parklet. My only real complaint about it is that it kind of takes up 2 1/4 parking bays because it hasn't been sited directly on top of 2 parking bays. It needs, as you look towards it from time, towards Time and Fyme, it needs to move about 2 feet to the right. Then it would only be taking up 2 parking bays.
Okay. In terms of, sorry, there was somebody else going to make a point. So in terms of what you said, Stephen, I understand that. I'm specifically asking about the Skew Arch side. Is there anybody that thinks that parklet on the Skew Arch side should go after a year? Or the general view is, do we speak to the council about keeping it as long as it's in good order? Jane, you're saying it should be taken away. My understanding was it was temporary. It seems an appropriate, right. Oh, okay, Jane, yeah. So Lime and Time, I don't think we have enough details about the license contract, but I think what we're being told by people on this call that it's not that popular. But I'm just asking on the Skew Arch, is there anybody here against the Skew Arch parklet? George, you got your hand up?
I'm more for it. I think the work's been done is tremendous. The whole objective of putting down the AstroTurf, as I understand it, was to improve the area temporarily. That AstroTurf isn't going to last forever. The planting is good. I think that we should try and keep it. I mean, it's a great improvement. So why would we want to get rid of it?
Yeah, I think nobody's got a different view on that by the looks of it. Yeah, okay. Well, that sounds pretty good. Thank you, George, for your support on that, and thank you, Stephen, too. Thank you for the questions in chat. So, Chris.
Excuse me, David.
Yes, Jerry.
Yes, can I just make a point of information going back to the Kiss and Ride?
Yes.
I just want to make the point that the actual facility hasn't actually been finished yet. So Workspace has still got quite a bit of work to do on it before it's finished.
Okay, and that's work by the landowner?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
They've got to remove the substation that's near the arch and install a roundabout so that you can go in and do a U-turn and come out again.
Okay. So between Chris and Tony and the Rains Park Association, that contact is with you, isn't it? The landowner.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I'm in touch with them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
It sounds as if that's only going to happen once the residential development takes place. But yes.
What residential?
the Rainbow Estate, over 200 flats were given planning permission many years ago now. Doesn't mean that it will ever happen, but there is a planning application that has consent.
But I noticed in the draft borough plan, it implies that the kiss and ride is finished, and I just wanted to make clear that it's not.
Okay, so Chris Witherington, would you mind putting that in the minutes? And then there are a number of councillors on this call, so if they have the motivation to discuss that with the planning department or maybe the highways department, then they will do so. Thank you very much, Jerry. Again, thanks, Tony and Chris, for your work and your presentation. Next people up, I think, is it Chris? Is it you with planning, Chris Witherington?
It is, yeah. So I've had some updates on some of the sites that we've discussed a few times at this meeting from colleagues in the development control team. So I'll give you an update on that. Any technical questions might be beyond my capacity, but I'll do the best I can. And if there's any sites I don't mention, please let me know, and I'll go back to planning and ask them for an update. So 2 Amity Grove, the block of flats there, there was a resolution by the planning committee to grant planning permission subject to completion of a planning legal agreement. That agreement was signed off and permission was issued on the 2nd of September. 80 Bushy Road, this would come in for pre-application advice for quite a large scheme. Demolishing the existing building and then a mixed-use scheme on top, and I think different access arrangements as well. There hasn't been any further progress or communication with the development control team, so they've now closed that file on the grounds of no further action. So unless they come back, we don't expect that to go any further. My New Plastics, which I think we've been discussing since I first joined the council a decade ago, on Kingston Road. There were 2 appeals for extra units over and above the approved scheme of 99 flats. So one was 118 and one was 124. Those appeals are still outstanding. The team's been in contact with the planning inspectorate. The inspectorate says it's working through their backlog. It's quite a big backlog, I understand. But they say it might not be too long before a decision is reached on those 2 appeals. In the meantime, there's quite a few details in the scheme that does have planning permission for the owner to discharge, and they are currently working through that. Conditions attached, so they're waiting those to be submitted to set discharge. So no movement on that at the moment. White Road, that's the development of block of flats alongside the railway embankment. Final details of the Section 106 planning agreement has been ironed out between the applicant and the council solicitor. So we expect planning permission to be issued very soon. I know we've debated at this meeting before about whether Network Rail got call on the site or any other issues. From a planning perspective, they will have likely to have planning permission soon. The Burlington Road Tesco site, big development there. The appeal was allowed in June for 156 flats and commercial units as well, following the public inquiry that took place last year. Officers understand that a new house builder has come on board, no longer with Red River Homes, and will be in the frame to implement the development. But for the moment, no one's taken any steps to discharge the conditions that were necessary before any work can commence. So it's on hold at the moment until the new developer comes forward to try and resolve that. And finally, the former medical centre at 9 Amity Grove. There's an application there for external alteration through the timber cladding, new glazing, replacement canopy, refuse facility, buggy storage and landscaping. That application was determined on the 10th of September. Planning permission was granted. So those are the sites I've given. If there's anything else anyone's got any questions on, please let me know.
Thank you, Chris. And there's a very large number of planning applications there. Chris isn't the planning officer, so he'll do his best to answer questions. I think, Tony, you're first. What questions do you have?
It's not so much directed at Chris, but I think for councillors as a general point, In reading the inspector's report on the Tesco appeal, it appeared, he pointed to the fact that Merton could not identify a 5-year land supply, which seems to be a fundamental, if you're meant to be defending spaces from unapproved or inappropriate development, you need to demonstrate a 5-year land supply. And it was worrying that Merton really hadn't got that fundamental in place. And hopefully there'll be pressure to make sure that Merton's planning department can do that for the future. Otherwise they're vulnerable to, I don't know how many other appeals, when obviously the pressure is on to deliver residential development.
So, Tony, there's a number of councillors on the call tonight, and there are a number of officers on the call tonight. So they'll take that on board, and time will tell. Thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions? I can't see any. Jerry?
Yes, please. Thank you. I just wanted to make a point that 6 months ago, private representation ceased to be put on the Planning Explorer. So if you're looking at a planning application and you want to see what other people have made objections to it, you can't see them. And the reason we were given by the council is that they were getting some redaction software so that personal information would be automatically removed, and then the representations would be back on Planning Explorer. 6 months has now passed, and we're still in the same situation. So my question is, when will the redaction software be put in place so that we can all see what representations have been made?
So, Jerry, I know there are some officers on the meeting, but I'm not sure that that's their area. So unless anybody speaks up in the next 5 seconds, I think it's an action point in the minutes. Is there anybody here that can answer that? No, I think that's telling us that we'll have to put that in the minutes for the next meeting, Jerry.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions about those numerous planning applications? I mean, I think one of the key things is that planning consent is based on 3 plans, which is the local borough plan, the London plan, and the national plan. And each plan has different rules, regulations, and guidelines, and the officers have to interpret those. But clearly, it's important that democracy prevails. So if there's anything that you're not happy about, or perhaps you are very happy about, it's always worth you signing up to a weekly email that the council send out with all the planning applications in your area. And please make as many points as you want to the council officers and to your councillors, because it's critical that what's built is right for the borough, and residents are the most important element of that. Chris Witherington, thanks very much for doing that. You did extremely well considering it wasn't your area, and no tough questions, I think. So well done. Right, I think next is we've got Thames Water and let me check, and Merton Council. I see a number of officers from like Tom, Salisa, Tara, and I've also seen Nishad from Thames Water. Which of you are going to lead this? Please, somebody speak up who that will be.
Councillor Dean, it's Tom Sly here from Merton Council.
Hello, Tom.
Hi there. It's going to be a joint act, actually, similar to our last presentation that we did to the forum. Nishad will be leading to start off, but I think there's a few of us on the call, and it would be good just to do introductions. So, as I said, Tom Sly, flood risk engineer for Merton Council.
Yeah, my name's... Oh, sorry, ladies first, of course.
Thank you, Nishad. Tara Butler, Merton Council.
Salisa Fergus-Fleury, also the other flood risk engineer in Merton Council.
And my name's Nishad Salki. or Nish for short. I'm the strategic planner in the area looking at flood risk.
Hello, Ashley Book. I'm the operations manager for the waste network at Thames Water.
Scott Carslaw, I'm the area field operations specialist, which covers the Rains Park area at the moment.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dominic Collier, I'm the local government lead for the area for Thames Water.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Nish, are you okay to kick things off?
Yeah, so thank you very much for getting us to speak today. So if we can move on to the next slide, I think, Tom, you were going to explain the responsibility of drainage for this slide. So over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nish. So this is a slide I think that you probably have all seen at previous presentations, but just to remind everybody, in the UK, there's various responsibilities set out in the Flood and Water Management Act with regards to flooding and the different organisations that are responsible. And I completely understand from everybody's point of view, it can be confusing. So just to run through this, surface and groundwater flooding. So working on the left at the top of the hill, it quite rightly represents the Cottenham Park hill slope going down into the town centre. So surface and groundwater flooding is responsibility of the lead local flood authority, which is Merton Council. Any drainage coming off private property is also the landowner's responsibility. The next point along is the private surface water and foul drains. If they are on private property and they only feed that property, i.e. the single dwelling, that is the landowner's responsibility, the freeholder. If there's more than two dwellings, then that would be Thames Water. The Highways Authority, so responsibility for block gullies or surface water ponding. Obviously, water can collect at low points. We know Rains Park is situated in a valley and is also shown to be at very high risk of flooding. But the Highways Authority in this location is Merton Council. River flooding, so the Beverley Brook, the River Wandle, etc., is the responsibility of the Environment Agency. And then just below that, you can see the two separate sewers of which we have in the area, so a surface water sewer and a foul sewer. Nish?
Yeah, next slide, please. So I thought it'd be interesting to mention sort of responsibilities and roles for both Merton Council and Thames Water. So from our view, the Merton are the lead local flood authority dealing with flood and risk investigations and flood aviation schemes. They are the statutory consultee on major planning applications. And I do ask Thames Water to consult on these planning applications, and they do take our views on board. The Merton are also the Highways Authority, so dealing with blocked gullies or surface water ponding, akin to how Tom's described the sort of the first slide. It's important to note, I thought if we move on to Thames Water, we are regulated by Ofwat, the government arm, and they sort of ask sort of the policing, making sure we invest where we should be and ensure that we have the right behaviours and deal with customers accordingly. And they ensure that we're responsible for anything that comes out of a sewer, that be it foul water or surface water, also maintaining and managing sewage systems, and that includes reducing flood risk and also pollutions. We do provide information not only to Merton, but to other key stakeholders where we think we have assets that might impact on local flood risk. And quite importantly, I think this really touched upon it already about planning and about new development. We ensure that our assets, be it the sewage treatment works at the end of the site or the pipes leading to it, have sufficient capacity to accommodate that growth, thereby reducing the risk of flooding risk and also the pollution risk in the network. Next slide, please. I guess this image on the right, I hope you all recognise, and this is the incident that happened on July the 12th. Assessments that we took showed that there was quite an extensive amount of rain that we saw in a very localised area. It's not only Merton that has suffered flooding, we saw widespread flooding across many London boroughs. And to give you a kind of idea of the magnitude of the rainfall we had 1 month's worth of rainfall in Merton in just under 2 hours. Areas like Rains Park, Lower Morden and West Barnes were the worst affected. But in places such as Westminster, Hampstead, Fulham, they had the same volume, like 1 month's rainfall, but they had it in under 1 hour. So even greater intensity of rainfall, which affected much more infrastructure. So this event was widespread across all areas around London. And it's a reflection of climate changes here. And we have to be a bit more clever about how we operate our assets and how we make ourselves more resilient in the future. We did subsequently have further storms on the 25th and 29th and August the 7th. And our systems operated well. We didn't have any severe flooding reported to us in the Rains Park area. So it's a reflection that we do have that susceptibility of high intensity rainfall causing these incidents. Next slide, please.
So Lisa, do you want to take this one?
Yes, sorry, I was talking on mute. Yeah, I think what some of the things we want to highlight really is that we have been working with Thames Water for a while now, and we've continued to do so. And I think it's really important to highlight some of the things that we've done, like in Merton. Over the last 12 months, we have now installed 4G sensors across various parts in the borough. And having a look earlier, there are around 20 in and around the Rains Park Town Centre. And that's because we know there is a challenge in this area. So what these gully sensors do, they measure the silt level and it issues a warning to Tom and myself when it reaches a certain level. And then we can action that on our part within the local authority to make sure that those gullies are cleared in time. Another thing that both Thames Water and us have done, we have CCTV'd about 3 kilometres or more of highway drainage and Thames Water. So we have done some CCTV surveys and Thames Water have also done some of their network. And this is because we've recognized the challenges that we have and where we need to address the issue. So out of that survey work, I think in one of the further slides coming, Nish will talk about some of the works that have come out of that. We continue where possible, either have weekly or bi-monthly meetings as required to keep abreast and keep the momentum going with the good work that we've been doing so far. So I think, and well, as you can see on the slides, it talks about the gully cleansing work, the tree removal, the removal of tree roots that we have to do as well. And one of the works that Thames Water have carried out is upgrading one of the pumps. I think it might have been in the picture before, on the slide before. So to ensure that the system is fit for purpose as it is. That's it for me. Next slide, please.
So this is what I thought we'd be keen to understand, that irrespective of what's happened recently, there have been investigations and it's been collaborative work that Tom and Lisa and ourselves and in operations with Ashley's help, that we've been actually looking around and trying to understand where the system might have susceptibility to potential blockages. So where you can see silt removed on the slide on the right, prior to any storm, we had already moved over 20 tons of silt around that area. And it was such a small section that we've got that on the plan clean, so that regularly they will go out there every 6 months or a year to ensure that that area is cleaned periodically. And just below, I don't know if it's possible, if there's a cursor, but you can see there's a little drawing pin and a little blue triangle. I tried to highlight there. That's the surface water pumping station. We gave that a clean bill of health prior to any storms. So we refurbished all the pumps, made sure everything was working, and gave it sort of the best opportunity it can to deal with any impact of storms. And we've also CCTV'd and cleaned areas, the lateral roads that feed into Coombe Lane and around the sort of Whirlpool Road, where we believe that there could be an opportunity to reduce the flood risk in the area and ensure the system is actually operating as designed. So there was quite a few elements that we had been doing prior to the storms, and even now post the storms, we've kind of did a bit of a sanity check to say, is there anything else that we can do? And we've highlighted in excess of 3 kilometres of other assets that we just want to assess and understand where the flood risk could be. And that's only by sitting together and actually seeing what's happened and getting the flooding records together and piecing a picture together. So think of it as a jigsaw, a puzzle where we're all trying to work together and find out where we think the root causes are and how we think we can the best way to actually resolve the problem in the future. So it's been quite an impressive sort of way of how we're moving forward, because it's the kind of relationship we want to have with other local authorities. And we are investigating what additional resilience in the area we can do. And we also supporting the sort of surface water sort of SUS schemes that we have in place. And that's a budget that we have within Thames Water, where you can either sort of look at assets being upgraded in the vicinity to deal with flood risk, but what's more important, we have to be a bit bolder about looking upstream and see where at source we can actually reduce that flow that's coming down quite steep roads that head into Rains Park. And I think someone in the comments already mentioned that it's such a steep slope that heads down towards Rains Park. So that flow is channeling down there, and at times doesn't have enough time to head into the collection system. So we're supporting Merton and all the other local London authorities in ensuring that we get some proposals in to put some rain gardens reduce the flow that's coming into those key areas. And it's not going to be the absolute solution, but it will reduce the flood risk. And yeah, but also bring out lots of amenity values. I already saw some images of Skew Arch about that planting area. Imagine that area and different areas that we had grain gardens and a far more greener infrastructure in the area. We just have to be a bit bold about the areas that we want to promote. And I really can see that as a real benefit to reducing the flood risk in the area. Thomas, anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of points really, Nish. Obviously, post the flooding, the immediate actions really is to ensure that everybody's assets, both from the highway drainage point of view and from Thames Water's point of view, are all in the best condition possible, and there are no defects within those. So that's been the immediate priority. Obviously, alongside that, we're discussing around capital investment into Rains Park. We all aware it is really needed. The frequency of flooding due to climate change is ever increasing. So we are seeing these very, very significant events happen 3 to 5 times a year now, which is becoming obviously hugely problematic for the town centre, for businesses, for residents, and for the road network. A lot of the times the road has to be closed. We know the bridge has to be closed due to the danger that it poses. So the immediate, like I said, the immediate thing is to make sure that all the assets are running correctly. And obviously we have identified defects. I think Nish has talked through some of those, and we'll come on to those shortly. We have also, on the last bullet point there around the SUDs, we've put a bid. This is from Merton Council to Thames Water. There was a pot of 1.5 million made available for the surface water management, and we have put a bid in for 8 rain gardens across the whole of the Rains Park catchment area. So that is being determined at the moment. We don't have a definitive outcome on that yet, but hopefully at the next forum we'll be able to feed back the good news that we've achieved the money. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so this is another key area, Abbott Avenue. This is an area where we have a foul water pumping station. Like this, can you see there's probably a green teardrop? Can you just see just where the green triangle is? Thank you, there's someone's cursor there. Thank you for pointing that out. That's our pump station, Abbott Avenue. And what we found prior to the events that we had in July, Tom and Steve asked us to actually go out there and try and see if there's anything we can do from a modelling exercise to understand the flood risk. So we had the flooding modelled, and we found that the flow that's arriving from underneath the railway, as you can see that dotted red arrow, plus the flow that's coming up to that green that green teardrop, as the two coincide at a manhole further downstream, you've got the pump station is pumping away continuously, and the flow's coming in underneath the railway at the same time. And where they both converge, that's the point where this manhole just is unable to accommodate all that flow, and it can't escape quick enough, and it causes that surcharge and external flooding that we've seen in the area. So what we're looking at is actually we're looking at using the upstream network, upstream of that sort of green triangle, and actually trying to use that as more as a balancing tank. So there's actually additional capacity that we believe we can utilize, and thereby that pump station will only pump when we actually desperately need to. When the wet weather level in the pump station gets to the point where we say, actually, we need to pump now. There's enough flow in the network that needs to be pumped. And that will hopefully reduce the flood risk in the area, and thereby only using that pump as and when it's needed to. So that's something that we are just going through, and hopefully by the end of this calendar year, we'll get some more modelling to confirm what the pump rate should be. And that's one aspect of trying to improve the flood risk. But we're also looking at potentially utilising some storage in the area for other purposes to use it as currently at the moment it's only for surface water, so we can use it for anything else that could be occurring in that manhole that's surcharging in the area. So both for Abbots Avenue and Rains Park, we've got some proposals that we're looking at and investigating. It's all subject to modelling to see if it's available. But these are things that are always in the pipeline, and it's we're just waiting for the modelling results to come back to see whether it's feasible to deliver. Tom, did you want to mention about the new SUDs, sort of like the development that's just adjacent to Abbots Avenue?
Yeah, I can do. And also just to put it into context as well, we mentioned earlier in the presentation that Merton, as a lead local flood authority, that's myself and Salisa, we're consulted on statutory, under statutory powers for all major applications. And through that, we look to achieve betterment, particularly on achieving greenfield runoff rates from sites. So the site, the old Manupastic site there, for instance, you can see on that site, the rates were reduced significantly down compared to what the existing rate would be. So we are achieving betterment through redevelopment.
Excellent. Next slide, please. And this is another sort of key area where we only found what the issues were through collaborative work. Our records had very minimal evidence of any issues in the area. So Tom and Lisa said that they found evidence that it was surcharging in the park, and it's right beside a school. So it was quite out for us, from public health, that we had to get out there and understand what the issues are. So we went out there and actually ascertained that downstream from the Berkeley homes, so probably you can just see a blue line that at the top of the screen connects to a red foul water sewer. That's the Berkeley homes development. And what we found, though it's not mapped on this map, we had the surface water connecting into our surface water network, but where they connected, it had collapsed. So we had to assess how much of the sewer that had to replace. So we're replacing a large section of that sewer, but rather than restoring it back to service, we thought, okay, since we believe there's a flood risk in this area, we've actually increased the capacity of the pipe. So if you think you've got a pipe that's so big, we've now made it even bigger. So it's got additional capacity to take during those high intensity storms. So we're just trying to look at those opportunities where we believe that we can reduce the flood risk. And working with Tom and Lee, so we kind of work out where those collaborative schemes are, because they were in the area to actually re-tarmac the whole road and the pavement. So it'd been pointless of them re-tarmacking the road and then for us to go in to dig it back up to then increase the capacity of sewers. So this is the kind of the, I guess, the collaborative efforts that we have. We look at the timing of infrastructure upgrades and where we see these opportunities where we can actually work together and actually better reduce the sort of interruptions that we have in the area, because the last thing we want to do is start digging up and causing nuisance to everyone. So we will always try to work closely to minimize the disruption. And we do a lot of work at night time, so you barely know that we're even there. And by the time in the morning, you won't see that there's nothing there, but we would have actually completed a large section of refurbishment or repairs to different structures or assets.
Nish, just on this one as well, just to jump in, apologies, there is further work to be done here. This is really work in progress on Cottenham Park Road. The road does actually benefit from 2 surface water sewers. There was a partial clean of the foul water system running across the park, but that has to be revisited. So there is a planned clean of all of the system all the way around the park completely in its entirety, which is going to be done. And I know Scott Carslow's on the call here, and he's in charge of this work from Thames Water.
Yeah, and this is what I mean by the collaborative work. You kind of see where one element of work stops, another bit starts again and finishes. We are kind of working through this sort of almost looking through all our assets to ensure that they're operating as designed, and where we think there is something that needs further investigation, we work together to agree what needs to be done and put appropriate timescales against it. I guess those are sort of the key sites, and that kind of moves us on to the next slide. This is really key. If you could take anything away from this today, please listen to this very carefully, because we have real issues with sewer flooding questionnaires. And prior to the flooding events, everyone came back to us, and it wasn't only yourselves, it was all other local authorities and other customers said that the system that we had about printing out a PDF form, then writing it, putting it in an envelope, sending it off to then put onto a system, it was so archaic. And yeah, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We believe that this should have been improved years ago, but we have now moved to a digital format. So rather than you having to print out this copy, then send it to us, you now go onto the system, and the screenshot on the right, you can see is actually what you do. You put in your details, write down anything you have, and any problems that you've seen, any flooding, any photos, upload them, and that will be sent through directly to us to then upload onto our system. And that is so key. It's like the record that we've been missing throughout the whole history, it feels like, since I've been involved in Merton, about getting that accuracy of where the flooding is and how frequently it's occurring. So following those sort of flooding events, we moved to the digital format, and we've pushed really hard to get that done as quick as we can. We've also increased immediately the number of staff in our call center. We were only, I think at one point we had over 2,600 calls in the space of one day, and we did not have the capacity to actually deal with that. So we recognized that we need to increase the number of call staff, so that's in progress. And we've also improved our telephony system. I think some of the feedback we got from Tom, Lisa and Tara as well, that it took ages to get through to someone, and by the time you got through to someone, you almost lost the will. You wanted to actually speak to someone to tell them an issue, and some people just hanged up. So we've put in a new system that will significantly reduce the waiting time, and that means that we can get through to the right people and actually log on these cases of where we've actually had flooding. And it's important to note that I guess in other local authorities, they've actually got far more sewer flooding questionnaires entered onto the system because they've persisted. And I just really want it. For me, it's really key because my part of my role is to justify investment in the area. I use these sewer flooding questionnaires as evidence. I'm working with Tom and Lisa to use what knowledge they have of the area to justify investment in the future. And without having that evidence, it makes it incredibly difficult to justify putting some capital schemes in the area. And it always goes back to, our strategic investment is always linked to better information. And we really need some assistance in, getting these sewer flooding questionnaires. It's the same message we said last time. We need that evidence. And if we could take anything away from that, please, look at these sewer flooding questionnaires and please complete them if you can. There's a question, what is the phone number, Nish? Go on the next page. I think that's quite fortunate, actually. There you go. Answer the question. So we've got the Thames Water phone number there. And it's if you see anything that's coming up for your sewers, please contact that telephone number. There's also a link on this slide, which we'll then we will disseminate that to all people on this call, and also will be put on somewhere that everyone can view it via the Merton website. So that should be fine. It's important to note that if you see anything from roads, gullies, ditches, please contact Merton Council. But this is really important. If this is in doubt, contact us both. We really, we're better to have more information than half the information. So please take that as it's something that we don't mind you contacting us. If it turns out to be someone else's responsibility, at least we knew about it. And if it is our responsibility, we've got a record. Tom, did you want to add in anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of points really, and just to put what you're saying into perspective. Really, on the 12th of July by 8 p.m, Merton Council, both myself and Salisa, were working very long shifts on that day, as you can imagine. And by 8 p.m, we had over 120 reports of flooding. By 8 p.m, Thames Water didn't have any reports of flooding in the Rains Park area. Now, I've said it previously on a number of forums, but capital investment will not occur without reported logs to Thames Water where there are incidents of flooding. Now, obviously, with the digitized format of that sewer flooding questionnaire, we have the benefit now of retrospectively being able to go in as a property owner and saying, yes, we've got a problem here, here, and here. And I'll just really encourage you, and I echo what Nish is saying about making sure that they're going to be completed. The other thing that we've just been talking about with Thames Water in the last week or two is to ensure that we gather that information, is making a van available, like a pop-up type roadshow, where they'll be handing out hard copies of that sewer flooding questionnaire to people, passers-by, etc., that live in the area that may not be on the computer or whatever. So yeah, just wanted to make that point. With regards to gully cleaning, the second bullet point there, again, I would urge any block gully requests to be logged through this route, if you can do, rather than phoning them in. If you can log this and say, and give the specific location, i.e. outside 1 Acacia Avenue, then straight away that will get issued as a work order to Veolia, who will then pick that up on their next round shift. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
So just an answer to Emily Knight in the chat. Yes, you can report retrospectively. So please use the link to do that.
Thank you very much, everybody. There are lots of questions. Salisa, you're looking through the chat. Would you mind answering the questions that you see on the chat?
I will. Let's make that a bit.
I've seen one pop up with regards to circulating the questionnaire from Jane. Yeah, we can do that. I can try and put that on the chat and in the minutes.
So one of the questions.
I'm trying to get. Yeah, I'm afraid I can't see all the questions.
Okay. Well, so Jane Barnes.
Councillor Dean, do you mind just asking them?
Yes, of course. So Jane Barnes has made a very good point in that Thames Water comments on planning applications and approves SUD schemes, but they will only control flooding if they are properly installed and maintained. There does not seem to be resources to monitor and enforce the correct installation. So I assume that question, Tom, would go to your planning officers and the building control parts of that, would they?
Yeah, building control can either be dealt with by the council or via approved inspectors. So that is a private building inspector. That is legislation. So it does depend on that. If there are issues with regards to how schemes are built out, not being in accordance with planning, then that's a planning enforcement issue.
Okay, and in terms of the question that George has put about rain gardens, quite a few people have asked about rain gardens. If you could just explain what they are and what they do.
Yeah, certainly. So rain gardens there's certainly a big drive to install them across London and across Merton. They're part of green infrastructure. So what they are a softer, I guess, a greener solution to storing water. It will depave hard areas of the highway or of the footway or areas of public realm into a softly landscaped location. The most recent one we've done is at the bottom of Wimbledon Hill, the junction with Woodside. We've also constructed one on the Path and in Wimbledon Chase and in Eastfields. So there's a number of them being rolled out across the borough. So yeah, they're certainly been well received, is what I would say, and they're a very positive thing in terms of accommodating the increased flows that we're getting from climate change.
Okay. And in terms of, and in fact, you've said that there's a proposal to fund 8 of them. And, you know, if there could be 15 to 20, that would be helpful. Just moving on to the next question from Mark Gale. The 2021 South London Waste Partnership contract, that's between the contractor and Merton Council, seems to take a more relaxed approach to gully cleaning. In the 2017 contract, for example, if there was a reported blocked drain, the contractor would need to unblock it within 3 days. Now, according to Mark, that's been softened. So his opinion is that it appears the contract should be strengthened, and essentially he's wondering what the opinion of the council is on this within the flooding department. Tom.
I mean, all I can say on this is the direct opposite. To be honest with you, Merton Council year on year has increased the amount of gully cleaning that it's been doing. When the highways contract was relet, we were able to pretty much double the high-risk gully cleaning that we do from FM Conway. So in addition to the Veolia work, it's not only Veolia, we do have in highways, we use FM Conway similarly to do the high-risk gully cleaning, of which pretty much all of Rains Park town centre is included, and the majority of the residential roads, the Apostles, etc. They're all included within there because of the history of flooding. The couple of points just on gully cleaning, and I know Councillor Crowe made a point earlier around the parklet actually outside Lyman Time, but the reason why it is set slightly, looking at the shop frontage or the restaurant frontage slightly to the left, is that we needed access to clean that gully should there be a blockage. We wouldn't want standing water to be held below the parklet. So obviously we wouldn't want to cover it, and that's the reason for that. Salisa in the presentation also talked around the gully sensors. So that's obviously a risk-based approach to gully cleaning, but it enables us to monitor it remotely and in advance of any flooding coming in. The sensors can also look at forecasting as well. So we've got an alert system whereby it literally pings out warnings to all of us, and then we can reactively go out straight away and get the gully cleaned. So it's certainly been a very good thing for us, and we're looking to increase the rollout of that.
That's good, Tom. Just a couple of small things. Sadly, the gully at Lyman Time has flooded. I have reported it has had a number of residents. So just to let you know, Mark Gale's just responded in terms of the contract, and he has shown me the pages of the contract where he says that the contract has been reduced from 100% action to list 80% action. I don't want to go into too much more detail because there's lots of other questions, but that was Mark's points. And there's been a couple of questions from Mark Leggett and Anthony Fairclough responding with regard to how planning assumptions are being adjusted to reflect that climate change increasingly means that once in every 30-year events are occurring more frequently.
Yeah, I can comment on that. In terms of guidance and legislation, with regards to SUDs and drainage, we always include an allowance for climate change, and yearly that is being reviewed. As it stands, any design scheme that goes in has to accommodate a 40% allowance on top of the 1 in 100 year storm for climate change. And that figure has been going up. It was only a couple of years ago that was 30%. So what that means is increased volumes and storage for attenuation, larger and larger systems, essentially, to accommodate these more frequent storms.
Okay, and Chris Witherington, could you go back to the main screen now so we can see people's faces to see if there are any other questions? Right, Tony Edwards has a question.
Thank you. I was reading the Merton report where it obviously showed some miscommunication between Thames Water, where their website was telling people to ring the council. And so it didn't seem like things were going quite as smoothly as they should do, because it also said you could claim against Thames Water, but only if you reported flooding to them. And if you reported it to council officers, it didn't count. But their website is saying report it to council officers. So there seems to be a mismatch in some of the communication. And also, as we heard before, what is the frequency of cleaning? If you get 21 tons of sediment, how long does it take to build up that quantity of sediment in terms of the cleaning regime to make the system effective? Because one of the queries seems to be, if all the gullies are clean, would we have an effective system against the normal climate change problems we're having, or is there a fundamental lack of capacity in the Thames Water infrastructure? Because it seems like before we've heard Thames Water say it's all okay, providing it's all working, and then we said, but the problem is the water's not getting into the gullies because of the silt. So it's Merton's problem. So the thing is, we're sort of having the problem batted backwards and forwards. But is there a fundamental lack of capacity in the flood system that needs to be addressed by Thames Water?
Is that one for you, Nish?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. I think your question about how often we go out to those sewers is that we do go out there and periodically clean them every 6 months or a year. And if we believe there's any instance where we think there is flooding in the area that thinks that we need to bring that bit earlier, we work with the local authority. And I think we've got gully sensors around the area of Rains Park. So we work closely with Tom's leads to say, does that reflect well? Do we need to go there earlier than the 6 months? And we usually time in where they do the gully clean with when we're going to do actually the actual cleansing of the sewer. So once they flush, let's say the gully, it goes into the sewers, and we want to clean out the sewer at the same time. So there's a coordination of work that we do, and we work together. Going back to your question about the intensity of the storms, about you said that there was, I believe you were saying that there was battle between. You said between Merton and Thames Water. I think for us, it's the system itself gets exhausted, and it's all collection systems. It's not only the sewers, it's the gully systems, the actual laterals that go into our network, which aren't all our responsibility. When you have these high intensity rainfall events, it exceeds all those capacities. So it's a combination where all assets are being exhausted by those intensities. And I think someone talked about rainfall return periods. And I don't want to get into involved in that, but our assets are able to maintain that, the functionality for a specific rainfall return period. It's when those intensities are far greater that it exhausts all other collection systems, not only our assets, but everyone else's. I hope that goes closer to answer your question, Tony.
Yeah, the other clarification is, rain gardens would be very valuable because of their capacity to absorb and buffer rainfall, etc. But if you say we're in a valley, and obviously you need to hold water and hold it on a level. So have you figured out whereabouts in Rains Park these areas will be? Because ideally they should be part of a local plan and have some amenity value and be plugged into our general infrastructure. So it'd be nice to know where you've identified where these can occur, really.
This is a combination between, I think, Merton and Thames Water. We have the budget to fund the sort of installation of the sort of rain gardens and the SUDS green infrastructure. And for me, the thing is, you can always sometimes focus on where it's flooding and think that's where you need to put the rain garden, but that's wrong. It's all the way upstream. That flow that comes down the hill, and finds the path of least resistance. We need to take that sort of green infrastructure and hold that flow upstream of Rains Park. And I think that's what Tom was alluding to, that the sort of the areas that they want to put the rain gardens are around Rains Park. It's taking the flow, reducing its sort of intensity as it draws the flows down into that area. And that's what we want to do. And I always think that if you think big, think bigger. Just go for something which is far more bolder and courageous. You have to have some more conviction about where we want to put these. And I think the more that we put in, the better the performance of the assets and the lower the flood risk we'll see in those areas. It's not going to be the panacea. It's not going to be that silver bullet, but we need to put that as part of our holistic solutions. And we've got the budget to actually start putting those in place. And if it meets the criteria of it's the right cost-effective solution to deliver in the area to help reduce flood risk, then it will be funded through that sort of mechanism. And we're working closely with not only Merton, with other local authorities to help build that program and try and make sure that we want more sites to come forward. And that's what I want to do, and have a suite of things that we can just pick off the shelf. If it meets the criteria, let's put it through that such a machine. If it meets the criteria funding, let's go and deliver it. And that's part of what I feel quite passionate about. It's something that we have to be a bit more clever about and be a bit more bold and courageous about what we do.
Sure.
One last question from Chris Larkman. Chris?
Just a couple of points. I suppose I want to thank Thames Water and London Borough of Merton. It sounds as if you're doing a really good job and doing the best you can in the circumstances. The question that's come from Apostle residents is about insurance. And some people have had problems with their insurance companies. And we're not in a sort of flood risk area officially. And I don't know if anybody can say anything about that.
Well, a number of the roads on the Apostles are actually in a flood risk area. One of the slides that we showed earlier was talking about the different sources of flooding, and the Apostle roads effectively all drain to the south across Bushy Road into one of Thames Water's trunk mains. But those roads, such as Clifton, Dupont, have had a number of quite significant flood events occur. The sewer system does throttle as well. So the system that's been in place there does throttle. So you may have 4, 5 roads all draining into one pipe to go across Bushy Road before it goes into the trunk. And it's another location that we've been looking at. We have installed things such as the tree pits, which are draining some of the gullies. They've been in place for some years. A lot of it is to do with interception. We also do have a historic problem with parked cars on those roads as well. It's not just those, we're having that problem across the borough. Even though we sign and cone when we're doing cyclical gully cleansing, we often may only be able to get 40% of the residents' cars removed, and we don't want to go down the route of a car lifter for a number of reasons. So again, just urge residents that if you do see that, and I know people will be sometimes away on holiday or elsewhere, but please just move the cars as best you can to allow us to get access in to clean the gullies.
So was that one more question from somebody or answer? So sorry. Anybody? No. So thank you very much indeed. I mean, Thames Water and Merton Council have come in for strong criticism for a number of years. And just reading through the chat there, there's a lot of people very frustrated with the issues that are occurring in the area. And Chris is right. Certainly, most of the councillors on this call, if not all of us, have spoken to residents who either cannot get insurance or haven't been covered for their insurance because Thames Water have not received calls according to them, and insurers are dubious of the reasons for flooding in people's houses, and therefore they've lost thousands of pounds of they've had to recarpet, redecorate. But I think your presentation has been very good. It's been very eloquent. But I believe that a lot of residents feel that the action and the words are not connected. And I think each year we go through this issue. And I think Councillor Fairclough has said it, and former Councillor Edge, that climate change or whatever it is has clearly made a significant difference in a valley. and the view from residents is not enough is being done. So we'd always love you to come back. We appreciate the intelligence of your presentations and the openness and the changes, but we don't think the changes are enough. And that's the information I get back from residents. So hopefully this time next year, we won't have flooding and you won't have that level of criticism that you've had in the past. Is there any last questions before we move on? Or points back, Nish or Tom, of course.
Just a point on insurance, particularly, and I may not have directly answered it, but it's generally not reliant on Thames Water flood incidents. A lot of it is to do with the Environment Agency's mapped data, so or the council's mapped data. So any type of flood risk that's been mapped, whether it be national mapping or local council mapping, is often what insurance companies will use. But they can use whatever they want. Sometimes they've done it as broad brush as just a postcode, and then it's not down to a property level issue. So that's the only thing I would say on that. But the government is looking at it nationally, and they're also trying to make, under the Flood Re scheme, they're trying to make flood insurance a lot more affordable.
Okay. Any other points, Nish, before we move on?
No, it's fine. Just thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you very much indeed. As I say, there are lots of people that we criticise who won't come to our meetings, and you do, you take it on the chin. So we appreciate that. But rest assured, we're going to keep pressurising both of you to hopefully help us remove the floods from the area. So thank you very much for turning up in strong numbers. We appreciate that too. So thanks again. Chris Witherington, I think we're now moving on to a presentation from the council leader, Councillor Mark Allison, aren't we? Are you there? Are you there, Mark?
Yes, thanks, David.
Yes, over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, David. It's not a presentation. I'm just going to talk for a little bit. But can I start by just saying how grateful I am to be invited? Just wanted to say that Merton's a great place. It's really nice to have the opportunity to travel around, or at least metaphorically travel around from my spare room to the community forums to listen to what local people think. So it's been really interesting to listen to what Chris Larkman was telling us about the work that he's put into and you guys have put into improving the area around Rains Park Station, and obviously, really fascinating to listen to the efforts that are going into improving the flooding situation. So thank you for that opportunity. If you don't mind, I just want to start by saying a little bit about myself and my values. I've been a councillor for nearly 20 years now. But I've spent most of that in the background at the council, mostly helping to run the council's finances and ensure that the council is financially resilient. But I just want to say that I am very, very local, and I'm very, very proud of my area. I was born in St Helier Hospital, and I've lived most of my life within a few hundred yards of it. Eventually, I moved to Mitcham, and I represent an area of Mitcham that's called Lavender Fields, which is a great name because there are neither fields nor lavender. But anyway, Lavender Fields, that's where I represent. So I was elected nearly 20 years ago, and I'm very conscious from being local, from being born locally, and representing a local area, that Merton is a great community. But I also recognise that there are huge challenges facing Merton. Mitcham, which I represent, is by far and away the most disadvantaged part of Merton. And although I would say that things certainly improved for many of the people living in Mitcham during my first 18 years as a councillor, the pandemic has meant that over the past 18 months, some of that progress has unfortunately gone backwards. So, talking about my values, I'm very passionate about lifting the life chances of those who need it the most. And as I said, in my time as a councillor, I think we've made progress. For instance, every Merton secondary school has now been rated as good or outstanding. In the past, when I first became a councillor, many of them were just appalling, and the chances were, if you went to a school in Mitcham, you were going to leave with no qualifications. So we've made incredible progress, so that Merton schools are now amongst some of the best in the country, and we get in the top 5 best results in the country for sort of post-11 education. I've also overseen various things like progress with new libraries being built and a new leisure centre, and of course, big priority is building thousands of new homes, because residents are currently living in or have been living in very poor conditions. So housing is a really important thing that's improved over the last few years. But I'm absolutely passionate as well about being inclusive. My wife and my son are mixed race, so I live in a mixed race family, and one of the things from the last couple of years, obviously one of the biggest things has obviously been the Black Lives Matter issue, and also for me personally, I'm a massive football fan. For our family, one of the things that really drives home how awful things can be for people has been the way that some of our black footballers have been treated recently. Raheem Sterling for a long time was called out, and the 3 black footballers who played for England and did absolutely wonderfully throughout European Championships were treated so badly over the summer, and I just feel incredibly upset about that. But all of these things have made me even more passionate about the importance of ensuring fairness for all here in Merton. And I'm proud that as leader of the council, I have appointed the most diverse, my most diverse cabinet in Merton's 55-year history. 2/3 of my cabinet are women, more than half are from an ethnic minority. And I think that shows that as leader of the council, I will celebrate, and I intend to celebrate, our great community in all its diversity. Now, as well, I became leader of the council in November last year, and obviously that means that I'm a leader that's been a leader only during COVID, which is slightly weird. But my first announcement as leader of the council was to launch something called Merton Together. When the pandemic began, I immediately recognised how many people in our great community wanted to help others. They wanted to help people who needed looking after because they were shielding, or they were isolated, or they were struggling in other ways, financially or whatever. And at the very outset, with my wife, I helped set up a food bank over in Pollard's Hill. And one of the things that makes me very proud of the area is that as a result of doing that, we were struck not only by the need that there was, but by how many people wanted to help us. So through my work at the council, I've seen extraordinary efforts by many, many people in our community. And Merton Together was a kind of joint campaign between the council and partners in the voluntary sector and elsewhere to sort of support the residents and bring them together and find ways that they could help in the community. And I'm sure that maybe even some of you who are at this meeting tonight will have got involved. And so I'd like to thank you and everyone, in fact, from the Rains Park area who got involved. It made a huge difference, and I'm really pleased with the way that we responded overall to COVID-19. As I said, becoming leader during COVID-19 has been really weird, so many things in all of our lives have not been normal. And the reality is that things for many people will never be the same again. But I'd like to say that I think that the council, working with the NHS and other partners, have done a great job of keeping everyone safe. But as well, unfortunately, some people have lost loved ones. Others have lost jobs or have struggled in other ways. And that's, you know, something that's got to be a priority for me as a leader. Having said that, others of us, COVID has meant many other things. It's just meant a new way of working, or a new, you know, more working from home, less going to the office, that kind of thing. And actually for many people in our community, and I suspect for many people in Rains Park, that's been a good thing. But it's certainly changed the way that that people live their lives, and that, for me, is important because it has implications for organisations like a council. And that's why, as a new leader, this summer, I launched a huge listening exercise across the borough. I called it Your Merton, because I wanted to listen to what you want from Merton, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, things you think we do well, things you want us to improve, and so on. And I think that if I reflect on it, Your Merton has been the biggest consultation that this council has ever undertaken, with thousands of people telling us how the pandemic has you know, made them think about their area and how they've responded to that. And because thousands, and that's a fantastic thing, and I'm just very, very grateful to everybody for getting involved. We're still ploughing through the responses, and we're still working through the implications. But I think it is fair to say that at this stage, what is coming through is that people absolutely love the fact that Merton has a great community. Sense of community has come through really, really strongly. And you know, that's about the way that people have come together, but it's also about things like, you know, you love our parks and open spaces and using them with your friends and family. And you know, I'm really pleased the way that the council has kept the parks open and in good condition throughout the pandemic. I think one of the other things that's come through is that we all obviously spend much more time in our homes and in the area around our homes than we did before. And we need to think through what that means for the kind of services that you want. People are much more conscious of their local area than they were maybe before, when they, you know, the home was just somewhere where you went to on the way to, you know, somewhere that you went to on the way back from work, and that you had dinner and woke up there, but spent most of your time elsewhere. So we're much more conscious of the area around where we live. We're very proud of things like our high streets and those sorts of areas. And so those are some of the things that have like come through from the Your Merton exercise. But I suppose one of the advantages of coming to groups like this tonight is that I'm very much still in listening mode, and I want to hear kind of what people have got to say. We've been very conscious about the need to make sure that the Your Merton exercise is fully representative, so that you know, people from all areas of the borough, you know, different demographic backgrounds and you know, ethnic minorities and so on are all included. But listening to people at community forums is also important. And I don't pretend that's what's come out of or what's going to come out of the Your Merton exercise is that everything in Merton is perfect. I know full well, for example, that Rains Park is a brilliant place, but I also know, and I've been listening, that not everything is perfect in Rains Park. So I think together, the council, residents, Rains Park, and so on, I think together we have done some amazing things to keep our families and our neighbours safe during the pandemic. I think we can probably all agree we've kept the parks open, kept the rubbish collected. You know, as a council, we've made sure that the children still get a good education. We've even kept free school meals for those who are eligible for them as well. But there are definitely a number of challenges. And I think that just as people are more conscious of the good things in their area than ever before, I think it's fair to say you're also more aware of things that irritate you. or that could be better. So I want to find out more about that. I really do think that Merton is a brilliant place. I'm so proud of the way that Merton has come together during the pandemic. I'm proud, incidentally, I forgot to mention, I'm proud, for instance, of things like AFC Wimbledon, which has, after 20 years of being done over by the Football Association, has come home at long last during the pandemic, and has come back to the Borough of Merton at long last, and they're playing really good football as well. So and I think it's given a real lift to everyone involved. But not only the club, I'm really proud of its fans who set up a new charity, the Dons Local Action Group. They set it up during the pandemic to help those who need it the most, in the same way that many of you have helped out your communities. So, I'm proud of a lot of things. I think that we've got a great community here in Merton. I think Rains Park is a great community, but now I think that hopefully we can start to look forwards rather than worry about what's been in the past. Now, I think it's really important that we build on that and we make Merton even better in the future. Now, I know that won't be easy, but I'm here to find out what your priorities are and what you want from us and the council in the future. So, just thank you again for inviting me, and I promise I will do my best to ensure that Merton remains a great place for families and a great place for people like you, and that we continue to make improvements for our residents, and maybe that we redress some of those disadvantages that have come back and inequalities that have come back over the past 18 months to address a lot of the good work that was done in the previous 18 years. And hope that's of interest. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. We appreciate your time. Do I have some questions? Any questions there? I can see. Oh yeah, there's a hand there. Okay, who is that? Speak, whoever you are.
Me.
Yeah, me. Chris. Right, go on, Chris.
So I just sent a chat to Mark. I appreciate his efforts to help Mitcham, but it seems to us in Rains Park that we get left out of sill levy bids, for example. During the last 2 years, we've had them rejected. And, what I'm suggesting is if the aim is just to help Mitcham, why not tell the officers just to tell us, and we won't waste our time preparing bids for Rains Park.
So Mark, that's been over the last 2 or 3 years, the Rains Park Association, which is an agglomeration of all the residents associations in Rains Park, have put in a number of bids and have been unsuccessful. And just the general opinion was that, well, the facts were that most of the money went to Mitcham and they felt sort of a bit left out. So I don't know if you have a view on that.
I don't think it's a characterisation that I particularly recognise. I'll put it that way. I know that, that considerable resources go into places like Rains Park. You've seen the work that we've obviously been doing with our partners around the station, and a lot of the work that we've been doing more widely in Rains Park. I wouldn't know which applications, I'm afraid, that you've applied for, but all applications for funding obviously have to meet criteria, and the criteria, I believe, will be published in advance. So it's important to make sure that all applications fit in with that. And I recognise that there are areas of great need within Rains Park as well. There are pockets of your communities that need a lot of help, and I'm sure if applications to support those areas come through, they'd be considered in the same way that they would be anywhere. So I simply don't recognise the characterisation, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any other questions for the council leader? I don't see any other ones. Oh, Stephen Crow. You carry on, Stephen.
Thank you, David. Mark, I don't know if you were here when there was a discussion of the building on the Tesco site, the Tesco Towers, and how that went to the planning inspector, and the planning inspector seemed to allow this application on the basis that Merton couldn't demonstrate that had land supply to meet its housing target. Now, I believe the housing target is 918 new homes per year for the next 5 years. It sounds as if we're struggling to achieve that. I was just wondering if you could comment on what we might do to kind of get ourselves out of this conundrum.
Yeah, my understanding is that that the 5-year land supply issue has been resolved. I think one of the issues might be that when applications come in, first of all, the 5-year land supply housing supply number is laid down by government. It's a target from us that we need to reach. So, you know, the numbers themselves are set by government, and we do our best to meet them and set our planning policies in line with them. Obviously, there is an issue that that certain councillors regularly vote against planning applications that would provide that housing, and so then that creates this cycle of if you reject planning applications that would provide much needed housing. And much needed affordable housing. One of the biggest problems in the community at the moment is the dire shortage of affordable housing. But if councillors continue to vote against the building of affordable housing in the area, then that will create problems for us in reaching our government target on housing numbers. So you know, it's I can't tell councillors what to do, but if you don't want to get in trouble with the planning inspector, you have to approve some of the housing, because the planning inspector will mark you down if you don't accept it, and then will impose schemes that like this one that you know, probably are on the real edge of what should be allowed. So you know, I'm afraid that there are planning committee members that you may need to look to who, you know, always vote down planning applications, who you might want to question on that.
I'm not sure if that's really the problem that the inspector was highlighting. I think he was highlighting the lack of land supply. I mean, as you know, the target for affordable housing is 40%. Very few applications come to the planning committee with a 40% affordable housing.
Yeah, and again, that's down to the rules, I'm afraid. The rules. You know, the target is 40%, but that means up to 40% essentially. So a planning application that was 40% would be compliant, and you know, that's the end of the matter. But the planning rules that have been introduced basically say that that if a scheme is not viable, you know, if it's not going to economically wash its face at 40%, then a lower amount can be allowed. And you know, as a council, you can't turn it down on the basis of not being viable, not being economically, being able to wash its face. And that is that's a real problem. I think it's also an element of the economics of house building. Before 2010, there were huge subsidies for affordable housing that meant that schemes actually could reach that level quite often, but since 2010, basically the subsidy has really drastically reduced, and schemes are expected to reach the target from within the profitability of a scheme. So if a scheme is not going to make a profit, there can't be any affordable housing, and a council can't object to that, because the developer has been able to demonstrate that financially they can't build the scheme without making a loss.
Thank you very much.
Does that explain?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Allison. Although I have to say that your excellent council has an almost 90% success in defending appeals, which either means the councillors were effectively rejecting things based on the rules and regulations, or the officers are outstanding in defending their patch.
I think that's based on the number of applications rather than the number of houses, though. The big schemes, unfortunately, that have been rejected against planning advice, unfortunately, 2 of those have been lost recently.
Yes, well, that may be in terms and percentages, but we'll see what happens with those. But thank you very much indeed for your time tonight, Councillor Allison. One last thing we'd like to do before 9 o'clock, which it is now, is there any pressing business that anybody would like to put their hand up for? Bearing in mind it is 9 o'clock, which is meant to be the end of the meeting. Anybody with anything pressing? If there isn't anything pressing and you want to ask questions, please write to Chris Witherington, respond to the email that he has sent you, and we can bring it up at the next meeting, or he can write to you individually beforehand. I want to thank, first of all, most importantly,
David,
yes, Chris.
Sorry, before you finish, I'm aware that Dundonald Church have come specifically to say something about their situation.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm very sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes. Is there anybody on the call?
Chairman, thank you. It's Julian Pleasure. I'll be brief.
So sorry.
No apology needed. It's late, so I'll be brief. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the church. I'm one of the governing elders of the church, which at the church, which simply means I'm one of many individuals responsible for the governance. I'm also one of the directors of the management company responsible for selling the residential units forming part of the building. I've got Emily Knight on the call as well, who's also a member of the church responsible for much of the technical detail. And if there are questions, she'd be happy to help on a technical, which are of a technical nature. Now, some of you may or may not be aware, we were supposed to move into the church in September. We had our opening week planned. We had a number of dignitaries. And as we've heard earlier this evening, there was a lot of rain on the 12th of July. A lot of rain came into the building at the back of Abbott Avenue, which Nish referred to the pumping station there. And I think the water got about 2/3 of the way into the building towards Kingston Road, which meant that the newly laid concrete floor was damaged, as well as the plasterboard on the ground floor. Now, obviously, that had significant impact on the program and the delivery, and which meant that we had to cancel our events in September on short notice. But the delay is approximately 4 months, give or take. We don't know how long, or if that's accurate, or if it might be longer. As you can imagine, there are discussions with the contractor, their insurers, and there are considerations to be discussed. And I think I suppose one of the things that Nish, Tom, and others mentioned is that there is a problem at the back of Abbott Avenue, and that they are trying to use the upstream network to release some of the pressure. And it would be good if those measures can be put in place. I mean, obviously, it's a big disappointment for us, and we continue to meet on Sundays in various venues, in particular Wimbledon Chase Primary School, which hosts 3 of our services, and then of course St Andrews up in Herbert Road. But we hope to be in there by Christmas, and if not, hopefully early in the new year. But I just wanted to give you that brief update.
Thank you very much, Julian, and I do apologise once again. Are there any questions for Julian? No, I don't think so. But again, if you do have questions, Chris has put an email in the chat. So if you wish to ask any specific questions of any of the presenters, or any further questions that you have, or indeed for your local councillors, then please write to getinvolved@merton.gov.uk, and Chris will distribute that particular question. So thank you very much. First of all, again, I'd like to thank all the residents that have been here tonight. These community forums are quite often the only way, and certainly the best way of getting your elected representatives in front of you, developers, and finding out about all of the information. Do appreciate your time. Thank you very much to everybody that has come along and made presentations. Very interesting, very intelligent, very elegant information that we've had tonight. And I think the questions have been very, very good too. And I think it's made some progress. I thank Chris and Tony and other Chris for organising all of this each time. You give your time, not just in this meeting, but across the whole of Rains Park all of the time. There are a number of people within Rains Park that make a significant difference, and you 3 in particular do make a huge difference. So thank you very much indeed. I would like to thank the council leader for coming tonight. You know, as council officers, we are, as council representatives, we are essentially voluntary, and we spend a lot of evenings and weekends doing this work. So we appreciate your time. And Chris Witherington, always there, always supportive, always coming back with answers to all of our issues. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Chris, when is the next meeting? Do you know? I know you know, but
I know. Yes, bear with me.
2nd of December.
Thursday, the 2nd of December. So whether we are in the library or we are still online, I guess time will tell. But I'll make sure we get the word.
Let's be positive. We'll be in the library.
So please, everybody, spread the word, because I do think this is a valuable resource. And the more people that come along, either through Zoom or at the library, I think it's good for residents, and I think it's good for officers and representatives to listen to your opinions and to hear from you. And one last thing is to thank all councillors for being involved. Again, not just for tonight, but for everything you do. It's not always easy being a councillor, working all day and then having meetings most nights. So thank you very much. One very, very last thing. A number of councillors are planting trees, daffodils, doing rubbish collections over the next couple of weeks across all political, I was going to say divides, I didn't mean that word, but Liberal Democrat, Conservative councillors are doing lots of different things locally. If you want to get involved, please contact your local councillor. So without more of ado, Chris Witherington, thank you very much for hosting. And I will see you all on the 2nd of December.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Chris. I think that went okay.
Went really well, yeah. So I'll get notes typed up and get those over to you. I think now we're looking at November Council. I don't think we're surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said September yesterday, wasn't it? So that'll be the schedule.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be perfect. So don't worry too much, Chris.
I'd like to give the speakers a chance to correct me before it gets committed to posterity.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure there may be one or two, but yeah, I thought it went very well considering you had so many people presenting. I think, what did we have, 11 in the end?
Yeah, there's particularly on the same subject. There's quite a lot of to and fro in there, but that went well.
Yeah, so to get through that by 9 o'clock. So well done. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Yeah.
And I will. I'm sure I'll see you on the 2nd of December, if not before.
Yes, probably. Well, you're going to Wimbledon next week. I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'm away in Hungary on business, so I probably won't get the chance. And I do want to sit in on planning on the third. Is it Thursday? Next Thursday? Yeah,
no,
I do.
Next Wednesday. That's next Wednesday.
A Wednesday. I probably will give it a miss because I want to listen to planning the day after from my hotel. But enjoy. Are you actually doing that in person?
No, we're on Zoom still for that.
Okay. Is your view that we carry on doing Zooms for a while longer?
We're certainly going to do all of the autumn ones still on Zoom. For the 2 in December, I can't make a judgment at this point. We'll see how we go. But I think the official line was, if it's not decision making, it's still virtual. The decision making meetings have to be in person because of the legislation or some form of hybrid. But non-decision making meetings are still remote.
And I do agree with that. I think because, of course, we won't be able to keep the windows open in December. And
yeah, and also the capacity, that's an unknown. So the library's got a cap on it. So what happens if the 51st person? We're in breach of regs, and I can't turn people away. That's not sort of the last thing you ever want to do. So I don't see how that works viably at that point. But we'll see where we are. If all rules have been abandoned, then fine. But I can't see it myself at the minute.
Well, the average age of people who turn up in that meeting are probably about 70, and they're at risk of flu and COVID. So I would imagine it's best if we don't.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, Chris Hedge was very keen to get us back in.
But Tony Edwards isn't.
Other voices prevailed. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, Chris. I'll let you go. And